Okay, so now we're going to talk and cover a couple different types of malfunctions, how you're going to handle these malfunctions in the field. So let's put ourselves in a mock scenario. Doesn't really matter what it is. Obviously right now we're going to be in the standing position. So we've got a bad guy and we're engaging the target, and then we happen to have a malfunction. So first off, I just want to show you I'm using snap caps. They're essentially dummy rounds. They've got no primer, no powder. They're actually a one piece. This is a 22 caliber, so it's aluminum, a one-piece bullet that will not fire. It's for safety purposes, being that I'm in a room. I don't want to have any discharge. Now, if you want to practice with real ammo, that's highly recommended. However, just think about this. You have to go slow. Go at your own pace until you feel comfortable. Okay, so range scenario, use ammo when you can. Make sure, check the range, make sure you can draw from a holster. Okay, so we've got a live scenario. I'm going to forward the gun. The gun is loaded. I got a bad guy here, and I draw my weapon. I come up, click. Round goes nowhere. What we're going to do, it's called a slap and rack. We're going to slap the magazine, hopefully seating that magazine all the way in. Most common type of malfunction is due to the magazine not seated. So when I do things, I do them deliberate. When I load my gun at the range, I do it deliberate. It's just getting my muscle memory going and getting used to loading the same way. That way when there's a situation, I won't be soft or I won't be light on any of this. I'll be as quick as I am, as hard as I am, and only as safe as I can go. So we come up to the bad guy, click. We're going to slap the mags, hopefully seat the mag. We're going to rack the slide, come up to the target, boom. Now notice one thing. Notice I didn't drop my gun and keep my eye or take my eye off of the threat. I had the gun up, click, slap, rack, up on target again. Just that quick. Now notice, fingers off the trigger. I have my finger in the trigger guard, click. I pull my finger off the trigger guard. I cant the gun sideways, slap, rack, keeping my assailant, the person, the threat, keeping them still in my sights. As they move, I will move. Boom. Threats down, drop to a low, ready. That's a malfunction of a misfire. Now, will we ever see a hang fire in a real life, real world situation? If it's a split second delay, because the first thing you do, you're not going to obviously be at the range waiting 30 seconds hoping that the bad guy doesn't approach you, doesn't come after you. That bad guy hears click, he's either going to move forward or move backwards. He's going to continue to be a threat, or the threat, based on the gun having it pointed at him or her, that threat will be no longer. So keep your eye on the target, slap, rack, back on target. Okay, next type of malfunction we're going to cover is what's called a stovepipe, or some people will call it a stove stack, or a half stack, or a hot stack. Essentially, all that nomenclature essentially means the same thing. A full round or an empty round, there's something impeding the slide moving completely forward. So the way we're going to simulate this is we're actually going to move the slide forward slowly. That round's going to get caught right in here, right? So this normally wouldn't happen if you had a misfire. You slapped, you racked, you got that round out of the way. This typically happens after the first shot's fired. So we come up, real world situation again, we're standing, we come up, we have a threat, boom, threat still coming at us, we need to follow a second shot. What we're going to do is the same thing, take our finger off the trigger. We're going to slap, we're going to rack, and that cleared the stovepipe. Now let's try that one again. Pull out a round. A couple different ways people teach this. Know your gun, know how your gun operates. This is a semi-automatic SR22. Would work the same with the Glock. Would work the same with the Beretta. A Beretta 92. Most of your semi-automatics, this will work the same. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop the slide back. We're going to insert a round, stovepipe. So bad guy comes out, we draw. Boom, we shoot. First round gets stuck, ejecting the second round. First round gets stuck. After in the ejection process, slide comes forward. You come back on the bad guy because he needs another one or she needs another. There's still another threat. Maybe there's two threats. You come up, click. We're going to slap. We're going to rack. And that pulled the rounds clear. Now I've got a live, fresh gun. Boom, back on target. Now, another way people teach this is if you've got a stovepipe. We'll pull this back just a bit. If you've got a stovepipe, what they say to do is click, then stop and look, right? Finger off the trigger, stop and look, figure out what kind of jam it is. Well, I think that takes too much time, and even if you practice that, I think you're going to be too quick moving, and your mind's going to be going in 1,000 different directions, and it's going to be, a panicked mode. So if you just continue to use the slap rack method, it's one less thing to remember. And it actually saves time, being that, hey, we're going to slap it, we're going to rack it. Now, that cleared the jam. It just happened to be my magazine was empty and I had nothing else to go. Now, if your magazine is empty at that point, slapping and racking won't do anything other than, you're going to be having to reload somehow. Now, in this case, I had a loaded round. It was a dummy round, but it was actually a loaded round that didn't eject. At that point, I would have to figure out what to do. Fight or flight, and it's case-by-case basis. So, if you have a misfire, slap, rack. If you have a stovepipe, doesn't matter, slap, rack. When you bring your fingers across, I'm racking this hard, right? If there's a stovepipe caught up here, and I grab it, and I rack it, that's going to pull that stovepipe right out. Okay, the last type of malfunctions, one of the hardest, actually the hardest to clear, it's called the double feed. Essentially, how we're going to duplicate that is how we're going to set that up is we're going to put a live round inside the barrel, and then we're going to forward the magazine, and essentially a double feed is exactly what it sounds like. It's 2 rounds being fed into the barrel at one point in time. So, my recommendation is we're going to go through the same process. We're not going to teach ourselves anything different. We're not going to slow down the fight by figuring out what's wrong with the gun. We're going to keep our eyes on the target, and we're going to do the same thing. We don't know if it's a misfire, right? We don't know if it's a double feed. We don't know what's going on, but we're going to do first things first. We're going to come up on the bad guy. Typically, the first round might or might not go off. It might start off with the stovepipe. Maybe it pulled, when you pull it, I don't know, something happened. It's just not firing. Typically, in a double feed, you'll get 1 round off, but not always. Some things could happen. Be ready for anything. Practice, prepare for anything. So, in the case of a double feed, what we're going to do is same thing. You approach the target, bang, back on target, ready to get another round down range. All of a sudden, nothing. Click. So we're going to slap. We're going to rack. That did nothing. We're going to notice that. We're going to drop the magazine. Just by dropping the magazine, the slide went forward. Then we're going to clear the gun. 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to quickly put the magazine back. Slap, rack, back on target, bang. Now, the reason why I say is know your gun. Some guns do not fire with the magazine out of the gun. It's a safety feature or what have you. It's just the gun will not operate when the magazine is not in seated. So, it's all fine and dandy that when I drop the mag, slide fell forward, hot round in the magazine. Know your gun. Know if your gun will fire without the magazine or if the magazine has to be inserted. Because the worst thing comes up, you drop the magazine, it comes out, and then you pull it here and you go to fire, and it goes click, because that's the way your gun works. If your gun does fire, you drop that magazine, that slide falls forward, it wouldn't be a bad idea to slap, come back on target, see if you can pull one off. Alright, so we'll set this one up again. Okay, so set this up once again, lock slide back, put a round inside the barrel, Insert the magazine, pull the side forward. We've got 2 rounds, double fed. So we pull up on the bad guy. Bang! Coming up for the second shot. Click, slap, rack, does nothing. Drop the magazine. Put the magazine in your other hand. Rack, rack, rack. Pull the magazine back, rack it, back on target, bang. Now, think about this. In the case of the slap and the rack not working, it might not be a bad idea, being that it's going to have to be a more deliberate action, or actions to get the gun cleared, clearing the double feed. It might not be a bad idea if you drop that magazine to look for cover. So, be very cautious of what you're doing. Practice safe, practice with snap caps, but most importantly, practice. If you don't practice and this comes up in a life or death situation, I can almost guarantee you that you will not perform like you should had you have practiced.